You just, and the little click of the mouse there. So let's go past that click of the mouse. See, just look at that. We got, can't work with that. Today, oh, why does it not go back to the beginning? If you want to like bring it back to the beginning, these little controls in here, like move playhead to previous area, we can kind of move around a little bit. It can be very helpful. But I want to get rid of that because if it's in the dead air before we record, then that means that it's in the whole recording. So this is one of my favorite tools of Adobe Audition, and it's called noise reduction. How do we get there? We just go into effects. We go down to noise reduction / restoration. And it's the second option down called noise reduction parentheses process. And it brings up a big scary window. Now, what this application does is it will give it the sound that you want to remove from your recording, and then it will remove it. It's a two-step process. Up on the top left-hand corner of this window, it says capture noise print. We've already highlighted kind of the area that we want to remove, the stuff that we don't like, which is good to know before you record, because now you know to give a little bit of silence before you start recording. I'm sorry, before you start talking or start doing anything. That way you can capture just a little bit of silence that you can then use to remove later. So we're going to capture noise print, and it's going to give us a cool graph that makes us look like scientists. But we're not going to touch anything in the graph yet. All we're going to do, we're going to kind of move it around so we can see everything. We're going to highlight all the audio that we want it to clean up. Sometimes you just got to double click, triple click, and it'll get to everything. And then we want to go to the bottom right-hand side here, and we want to hit apply. Boop. And it will reduce. Oh, that's so much better. Now, instead of it being like up here to -39, now it's much quieter. Today we're, and it's still very loud. So now, to get back to our main multi-track editor, we want to up top left-hand side here, back to that files area that we showed you earlier, where we want to hit select our big file. This is greatest of all time, and all those changes that we made in the waveform editor earlier just now, it will apply to our multi-track editor. It all goes over. Today we're learning about Run DMC. Run DMC was an American hip-hop, and it's a little quieter, which is nice. And we have less of that fan noise. We still have a little bit, which we can go back and we can do multiple passes of that if we want to. Like if we want to, if we want to get rid of that little thing in there, or even just, it doesn't need a lot of audio to do it. Like even, oh man, it's like nothing over here. Very quiet. But then like once it gets into here, oh, it's just me talking. Another thing that we can do in the waveform editor, if you find you're going to be in here a little bit more adjusting audio, this box right here, I can move it, shake it around a little bit. This is another gain knob where we can highlight and we can adjust the volume of everything if we want to. I think I'm actually going to. Hold on, let me just undo. Just Control Z I use to undo because if you see here to the right-hand side, it actually tells us like kind of what decibel that we're at. Remember, -6, that's where distortion starts. And I have danced around that with my peaks here. Even right here, I get a little loud, so there's a little too much distortion. We can't stop the distortion, but now we know that, okay, that's going to hurt our listeners' eardrums a little bit if we do that. So there's a few different ways that we can handle it. One is just we want to reduce the audio a little bit, right? Just like that. And that brings everything up to that -6. And then if we go back into our multi-track editor, those changes will have been made. But remember, we also did that adjustment here to reduce the volume. So I can bring that back up to 0 now that that change is actually in the audio file itself and not just this overall audio adjuster.
Oh, right, because that was the difference. That was the difference, right? It's like now that's part of the audio file, whatever you do in the waveform editor.
Yes, anything done in the waveform editor is for lack of a better term, or you know, for better for worse, the way we think of it is it's pretty much permanent, because then when you go to save the file, every audio file that you have made within Adobe Audition gets saved separately as its own separate audio file. So any changes you make in the waveform editor after you save, it will save those separately. So just keep that in mind. Any cuts, like let's say if we were to cut up this audio file from the multitrack editor, the file itself, the audio file itself will not be cut up because you've done it in the multitrack editor. But if you do it in the waveform editor, then it will be permanent. So also good to, if you are going to, after you've recorded and you want to start editing, it might be a good idea to save the raw audio and then make a new copy of your new audio files after you've edited them, so that if you ever mess up or you realize you did something wrong, you always have your raw audio files to go back on where you can, that way you can do it over again. So let's see what else is in here. So let's see what else what we like about this. Right. Oh, I don't like that. Did you guys hear that? My little mouth click noise.
That's something that's really hard to get rid of if you're just using Premiere.
Yeah, but in Adobe Audition, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. So how do we do that? We got a little thing here. There's a few different ways, just like everything, that we can do that we can remove this click. We can do it in the waveform editor because, we're probably not going to need that later on, that little, mouth click. But just for the sake of simplicity, we're going to stay in this editor, in the multitrack editor. There's a few different ways to get rid of it. If you highlight the spot that you don't want, you can just hit delete and it gets rid of it. And because we have silence before it and silence after it, it's not going to affect the audio around it. And because we've reduced that volume of like any room noise, it's just going to sound like silence. Another way we can do it, which is my preferred method, is you go into Edit, you go down to Ripple Delete, and you can either Ripple Delete Selection. There's a few options here. I like to do Time Selection on all tracks. And what this is going to do, it's going to delete the track, and then it's going to move everything over to before the delete. So I'll show you. So we hit it. See, and it moves everything over. And it'll be hopefully a nice seamless transition. Run DMC, it's like it was never there. Run DMC was an American hip.
Is that other stuff still there, technically, like hidden?
Yep, it's just hidden.
Gotcha.
So if we click in, if we really want that sound click back, we go into the waveform editor, and there it is. Like it never went anywhere. Adobe Audition is a non-destructive editor, which is another reason why it's so powerful, is that little feature right there. Because back before we had, computers and audio software that was so readily available, back when we were recording everything on tapes, you would have to physically, cut tapes out and remove it and then splice it back together. And that was very destructive. So now we have computers and we have powerful programs that can do this. That way we can just adjust stuff. So I think we can get rid of that click. And then as you keep going, you can, if you want this stuff to be a little tighter, Run DMC. See, there's quite a bit of space here. So if you want to go in and, you can adjust stuff to make it a little tighter so there's not as much dead air. You can do that as well. But so far I kind of like it. Another really cool thing we can do is, this is kind of a long audio file with a lot of, we have a lot of blank space here that we were using for our, noise reduction purposes, but we don't really need it now after we're done with that process. So what you can do is just kind of scroll over to the corner of the audio file, and it'll give us a little red bracket. If we hold down, we can just move the whole audio file over to be kind of more close, to be closer to where we started. We can do that with the other side too. Oops, 1 sec. My throat's getting a little dry. So we can adjust those brackets to make it a little tighter if we want.